All right. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Hello, and welcome to the Industry 4.0 Club. I'm Grace Donovan. I'm co-founder here at the club, and when I'm not here with my lovely co-hosts and our guests, I am the head of sales for the United States at Andonics, a software startup based out of Detroit, and I will be your co-host today alongside Yen Pingel. Yen, welcome.
Yeah, and my name is Jen Pingel, as you heard. I'm also one of the co-founders of Industry 4.0 Club and co-host here with Grace today. And when I'm not here with Grace and other good founders that we have coming into our hosting jobs here, I am product leader for Ingersoll Rand, where we work with IoT to make our equipment smart and connected.
Excellent. Thank you. So today we are joined by Elizabeth Barron, who leads enterprise solution architecture at Unity Technologies, the world's leading real-time 3D development platform. And today's discussion is a teaser for her panel discussion at IME West on February 8th. We hope to see you all there. We're very excited. Elizabeth manages the development of immersive digital twin enterprise solutions for manufacturing, automotive, and transportation. And formerly, she was Ford Motor Company's technical specialist in immersive realities. She is the inventor of the Ford Immersive Vehicle Environment process and technology which delivers contextual data with high visual fidelity for global immersive evaluations. Elizabeth was awarded Ford's highest honor, honoring her career in immersive visualization and her technical leadership. And she is the past chair and current director of ACM SIGGRAPH, the industry's largest computer graphics association. Elizabeth, we are so excited to have you here today. Now, just a little bit about the Industry 4.0 Club for anyone who's new in the audience. Our purpose as a club is to engage the power of diverse worldwide talent to accelerate the global evolution and adoption of Industry 4.0 by hosting respectful, thoughtful, and interdisciplinary open conversations on wide-ranging Industry 4.0 topics. And in anticipation of IME West, we are a proud partner of Informa Markets, the event organizer, to support their design, engineer, build, content track where Elizabeth will be speaking on a panel with other amazing industry leaders focused on the advantages of implementing augmented reality based in manufacturing facilities. So Elizabeth, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us here today. I'm going to toss it off or start it off with just a quick introduction of yourself to our audience. And what do you consider to be your first introduction to the world of AR, VR?
So thank you for having me. It is great to be here. I love talking about all things immersive. I love talking about how technology brings people together. And the role I have at Unity is really about that, how to use technology to bring people information, to bring it in context, and to have things represented as they should, to really meet creators where they are at, meet engineers where they're at, and have creators and engineers actually come together through the use of the tech. So it's great to be here. And regarding you date me big time, my first foray into the immersive world, I actually started in like 97, I think. I did my first immersive work at Ford, and it was rough. And in 1999, we actually deployed our first tech, which used magnetic motion tracking, created a digital human like an avatar, and put you in the world.
Mhm.
But at that time, you could only have 60,000 polys in the entire scene. That includes the human, the vehicle, the environment it was in. And then because the system used magnetic motion tracking and we were studying cars, we had to build a car out of wood and then actually like give you something physically to tie to. So we really have come a long way. The place that we're at now is fantastic, and I'm really excited to have been on the journey for not only the immersive paradigm, but also how to use it in context with what's coming in the metaverse.
Okay. Well, Unity Enterprises works with industry to think and dream bigger, from the automation industry to, of course, animation, architect to deliver worker training, customer-facing apps to customize or build products, visualize blueprints, and how to build much more. What's one area that you see ripe for AR VR adoption?
Yeah, I see really the area where AR, VR is used as a tool in the toolbox for industry to find the answers that they need. And so that tool, it's really about the use and the implementation of AR, VR in a system that allows you to find answers sooner. And finding those answers means getting things delivered in context. So I think one of the areas that's ripe for innovation is really around the area of how to apply artificial intelligence to contextualize a whole host of data sets. So data from engineering, data from fluid dynamics and computational areas, and data from like the visual aspects, and then also how you as the end customer might perceive that data, or the end user, whether that's a technical use or a use for enjoyment. So I think that area of providing things in context and then consuming them in an immersive environment is where we're going, because we have these headsets, we have tablets, we have other ways of looking at data, but understanding the unique and special way that being immersed in a data set provides you with more context and gives you a personal relationship to even scientific data. I think that's a practical use that's coming, and we'll use it at the right time instead of using it as a novelty.
That's super interesting. And I'm kind of trying to connect this, as I feel like I'm still very new to the world of AR, VR. I think, throughout our lives, especially growing up in like a digital era, or maybe like through, my teens, I was kind of introduced to the world of AR, VR through, again, Oculus headsets, although I think it predates that certainly, but ways that I see this being used kind of in the day-to-day, and where I think I begin to connect the dots really around the possibility of this technology, as you mentioned, is like becoming familiar with perhaps what furniture that I'll be buying at IKEA and how that's going to fit into my home. We see retailers using it that way. Again, if I want to design a custom vehicle, I'll be able to do that in an immersive environment, or tour homes. So, as someone who's still getting to know that, I just kind of like to bring those examples of ways that we really connect that. And perhaps, tying it back to some of the work that you were doing at Ford around implementing immersive realities. Can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you were doing? I know you mentioned, building a wooden model when you were doing magnetic tracking of, you've got to innovate when the technology is still at its earlier stage. But how did that advance? And really, what was the benefit of having immersive realities? What did that bring to the enterprise that you're now, through Unity, working to bring to enterprises across the country and across the world?
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that question, because they are linked. So when I was at Ford, I had this this burning desire to do immersive work and to use it as a paradigm for communication. But I think I was a little bit, I know I was before my time. So I think in 2004, I went to like some board of like, technical specialists committee, and said, I want to change my title to Virtual Reality and Advanced Visualization Technical Specialist. So back in 2004, putting virtual reality and high fidelity graphics together was, impossible and kind of a joke. But I put that in my title because that's where I was going. And that's where I saw the value for the company. And the company thankfully saw that value and, provided resources to make it happen. But what ended up happening over a decade was using the technology with very high visual fidelity. So we're doing real-time ray tracing in VR. We were doing 4K real-time ray tracing, and we provided engineering integrity to the data. So you could measure to a sub-millimeter accuracy. You could MRI slice through a whole vehicle with an engine and a powertrain in it, and then have it also reflect the environment that it was in, provide the right look and presence, and shape and form. And the vehicle was life size in a kind of like an empty room that you could walk around and interrogate. So now engineering, design, and manufacturing could all come together. And then they could actually look at the vehicle tolerances as manufactured, not as built. So you could say, this is what the company, like the assembly process, is capable of manufacturing. Is that acceptable build quality for the end customer? Like we produce this with 6 Sigma, we produce this with 4 Sigma. What's acceptable? And then what do we need to change? And so those discussions happened a lot earlier than in the past, when the line was tooled, and then you would build a prototype and then go with a marker and look at the areas that were really bad for the first few runs of the vehicle. So there, it really was a game changer. And the thing that made it work was that the teams came together, and it's part of the product development process. So no vehicle is made it forward that doesn't run through that process. And once that happened, once it became like a check that needed to be done, then it really legitimized it. And then the value itself was there, because it was a huge time saver. Just a little anecdote is, some people say like maybe 20 minutes in VR and then that's it. There were people that were immersed with a military grade headset on for 4 hours straight because they got 4 hours of lab time, and it was so valuable to them that they would just stay in that environment until everything was done, because the answers that they got saved them so much time, and the quality was higher, and it saved money. So it's a really good solution, and it kind of speaks to the way the tech can all come together to provide things in context, which is like what I'm so excited about at Unity. Is that's what we're doing with our digital twin platform. That's what we're doing with immersive paradigm. And yeah, so it's very exciting.
It seems like you've been on this topic from very early on, when we're just kind of like starting. So very interesting. I didn't even have an idea that was going on in the automotive industry at the time, that you were immersing yourself into the development process like that. We typically talk about in software development that the earlier you get the customer or the user involved to get feedback, the less mistakes you make at the end. It's kind of like the same here, more, except it's like immersive visual to see the actual physical product and get involved very early on and see how it is. That's very, very, very cool thinking on. It's something that I didn't even think about that early on in 2004 or 5 that was going on in the automotive industry. Very interesting. One thing that's in Unity that is fascinating is you change approach. We're changing a little different topic change here, but you're changing the approach to work instructions and thinking through what guides people what needing to create AR/VR content in that environment that they're working in. What makes great AR work instruction, and how is it different from example commonly known today, like assembly manuals and step-by-step digital guides? What makes a really great AR work instruction, and how does it work?
So what makes a really great work instruction, or any type of AR experience where, of course, the physical world is represented, the virtual world, is that the input is given when it's needed. And then the input that's provided is helpful and doesn't obstruct the things that need to be done. So I think one of the thing about work instruction is you need to see the instructions, but they can't be like where you need to see to actually do the task that you need to do. And so there's actually a good amount of thought that needs to go into the user experience and how to deliver that content. And people, especially like if you're talking about work instructions for manufacturing, they can be in a very weird position, right? They can be, like under something, or, head tilted funny, but lighting conditions can be odd. And so the user experience and designing that experience and designing the the flow and how things are presented to you and when they're presented, and based on what you've done, what should you do next? Because maybe if the narrative might branch, so you need to know, am I going to do this next or that next, and which thing should I present, and then where should it be presented to not obstruct the work environment.
I'm assuming too that I'm assuming too with AR that there are now opportunities for like guidance and arrows and highlights you can do as opposed to just have a textual instruction, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Lots of there, even sound. There are a lot of ways that you can direct what needs to be done, and then make sure that the way it's being done is the proper way. And even doing checks, like it, not only doing the instruction itself, but then also having a smart check. Was it completed properly? Is it within tolerance? Like these are the things. It's not just like providing, like, do this. It's after it's done, now, was it done right? And then what should be the next step? So that intelligence that I talked about earlier can really play heavily, because we can use scanning technology to say, okay, that was seated properly, or, please try again, and, really go through that. And then that's also where designing a really smart user experience really helps. And then also, just a lot of times for work instruction, the devices are not like these super high end gamer headsets, right? They have, and that's they are very like possibly low level devices, as far as like providing a lot of content at one time. They're providing arrows and maybe some text, and that's one of the things, like providing that in a very responsive way and hooking in all of the artificial intelligence potential. That's one of the things that Unity does really well, is we work on any device, and from low level to high level, and we're very good at being really responsive on devices that have lower end chipsets and graphical requirements.
I think that's a really important, consideration, especially if we look at just from again, I think a lot of folks, and I myself had this perception of, to really benefit from AR, VR in a lot of its forms, you need a lot of kind of at the very expensive hardware devices, but democratizing it really does accelerate that potential, like, being able to use it on any smartphone or tablets, and getting, perhaps not the exact same experience, but similar enough where you're still going to get those benefits. And that certainly makes, I think we're talking about, the benefits and how we can improve manufacturing processes, and of course adoption. That's a huge component of that adoption piece, especially if we think about like wearability and usability and any fatigue that can generate. Having that on devices that are easily accessible or fit for use for the environment that you're in is incredibly important.
Absolutely.
Now, I was curious, as you're discussing, not only how are we going to be instructing and guiding people that are using AR, VR tools so that they become familiar with it and drive adoption, from the end user standpoint, but also from people that are going to be using, AR, VR to create models and build collaborative environments. What are some of the, I guess, skills? We talk a lot about workforce development and talent development on the Industry 4.0 Club. What are some things that you see as really important skills that need to be fostered to, for the future of AR, VR? Quite vague, but I hope you.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess the nice thing about answering that question is there are a lot of things, both in the scientific and in the creative areas, to enable AR, VR in the future. And so on the scientific side, I'd say, coding skills, understanding math and science, like even physics, and like thinking about the physical properties of things. They have to be represented mathematically so that they can be simulated in those environments. So there is a very heavy need for coders that understand along a spectrum. I mean, some of it's like scripting and some of it's like hardcore coding, just depending on what the application is. So if that's how your mind works and that's what you're interested in, there's a lot of opportunity out there. And then on the artistic side, one of the things that just warmed my heart coming to Unity is I felt that it was like this playground of talent that I had access to. Like when I was at Ford, I was, working with talented people, but they were, automotive engineers and designers. And when I came to Unity, I was like, oh my gosh, not only are there all these coders, but then there are these UX and creative people. And that blew my mind in such a good way, because the creative side of XR is also really important. So when I talked about providing that interface and how the story of what you're doing needs to be presented to you to provide optimum answers, how to get data represented from lots of different teams that have very different mindsets in a way that tells the story so that everybody that needs to see it can relate to it. And sometimes all at once. You might have, teams from all of those different disciplines, or I hope you do, all coming together in an immersive environment to understand things together. So there's a very much, even though it might be a scientific thing you're studying, there's a very high degree of development of the experience and the way that the discoveries are made, and presenting the information in a good and logical way so that it appears the absolute right thing at the right time. But there's a lot of forethought and planning, and the best user experience is where the hardware just kind of goes away and the software goes away, and you're just thinking about like product and how to solve a problem. So yeah, so on the creative side, like even like making models that are, beautiful and have like the right amount of environmental impact, and there's all kinds of potential outcomes out there for anyone interested in a career in the XR industry.
Yeah, thank you. There's certainly a couple of skills that you mentioned in there that I hadn't necessarily associated with, immersive realities. And so it's very valuable, I think, especially as folks kind of continue to get to know, the space a little bit more, what's needed. And for anyone who's younger tuning in, understanding like what are some ways to develop a career there, right? Or, what are some skills that as companies we need if we want to take advantage of this technology? What skills do we need to have in place? So that's excellent. Thank you. Now, speaking of, adopting technologies, we've seen, especially in the last 2 years, like a huge acceleration in terms of a technology adoption. Willing or unwilling, it's certainly happening. And you had mentioned in a previous interview that one really important thing with new technology is stability. So with all of these new tools and innovative ways of approaching a problem or solution, what is the role and importance of stability in a move fast and break things kind of world?
Yeah, I thank you for asking that, because it is so important to have stability and consistency, especially for large organizations that are adopting XR. First of all, there's like a barrier to entry sometimes. Like, I don't want to put that thing on my head, or I don't want to, hold this tablet. And then if you are giving them new interfaces every time with new devices that have different buttons to press, and they just got used to pressing A for something, and now they hold number 1 instead, and they're like, but they're when I was at Ford, I used to hear I'd say, I don't know if it was daily. It seemed like daily, but it was probably weekly. Somebody saying, well, the so-and-so thing is brand new, and how come you're not using that? And because if you are constantly updating disrupting in a negative way. And there is a good thing to have respect for the way people have adopted the technology and their modus operandi and what they can do with what they have. And unless it's a huge leap, then there should be a planned approach to the introduction of new technology. And if you just like think back in retrospect to all of the tech that's out there and how many new things come and how quickly it comes, the level of difference is usually somewhat small, like in the grand scheme of things. And so I maintain that, like, when you get a good system, you leave it alone, you get core adoption, and then you possibly introduce new technology by providing options to existing technology instead of like ripping the Band-Aid off and then giving them like a whole new paradigm or a whole new controller or, something like that. But some improvements can happen organically. Like if you have a new technology to render and you just get better visual fidelity, by all means. Like there's no real reason to give, well, sometimes there is a reason, but in general, there's no reason to give worse fidelity than you're capable of doing. But if it has to do with your control of that environment and how you present information to you, then that has to be really well thought out and done judiciously.
Excuse me. Yeah, so as you were, sharing kind of the importance of that, stability piece, the opposite side of that coin is change fatigue.
Yeah.
People, you're getting very tired that things are changing so much. If they were pressing A, now they have to press 1. Like that can really be a hindrance to this adoption or, taking full advantage of its benefits. And I think that's still something that's coming to the forefront that a lot of folks, myself included, are still learning how to manage when it comes to implementing new technology. What are the things that make people fatigued? But then how can we counteract that with making, a very well thought out user experience that's going to foster that adoption and, keep people delighted and engaged by, by the products that we're putting before them.
Exactly. Right. And then delighted, engaged, and then also like the purposeful. Like I'm trying to think of the right word that goes with that, but there needs to be, especially for like the industry, there needs to be a purpose, and it has to provide you with new information in a way that is beneficial. And so just putting on a headset to get immersed in something, to see it in 3D, maybe not, but getting immersed in something so that you can look and see and understand volumetrically, because you need to see how your product is represented like one-to-one. Doing that on a flat screen is not as good. So there's a huge benefit to doing it immersed. So that purpose part is really important because, everybody's time is incredibly valuable, and there needs to be a reason why they're getting immersed in these environments, whether it's presenting work instructions instead of like grabbing, paper or looking on a tablet. That's one way. And then another way, or, just understanding product better, or, hard engineering problems. Like one engineering problem was about rivets, like exploding off of a vehicle and like how they came off during a crash. And that's a really good use of the immersive platform that I think wouldn't naturally become apparent.
I think critical part of that naturally becoming a parent. No one's going to want to get too up close and personal with a crash test dummy. That is a big risk. But of course, these are important discoveries to when it comes to design. How can we, engineer these better, but also keep everyone safe while we do so?
Yep, exactly.
But as you mentioned, the purpose, really understanding the why we're doing this. yeah, gives people that kind of engagement and again that purpose that they need. I love talking about the importance of why.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been great. This has been
Go
great.
ahead.
Absolutely. I unfortunately can't make it to IME West. I'm going to be in Orlando for another conference instead. But I know that Grace and others are going to be there, and it'll be interesting to see the outcome of all these different panels and presentations out there. So really happy you could join us today. It was great to get a little preview for at least the ones of us that are not going to be able to make it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, I consider myself very lucky in that regard. Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much for spending this 30 minutes with us today. I'm personally really looking forward to your panel. And then if anyone else who's tuning in will be attending IME West, be sure to look up Elizabeth Barron and add her to your schedule in the IME West app. You'll be able to find that panel under the Design Engineer Build track. And Yen, we have some of your fellow panelists coming on as well to speak about upcoming panels. So stay tuned to our Industry 4.0 LinkedIn page for those upcoming lives. And we invite everyone to follow the Industry 4.0 Club on LinkedIn. And Elizabeth, what would be the best way for anyone who would want to connect with you that's listening in here today?
Yeah, so I'm Twitter on hashtag immersive stories with or through LinkedIn under Elizabeth S. Barron.
Excellent. All right, you can find those details in our speaker profiles below, and keep your eyes open for additional live appearances from our team, the Industry 4.0 team, as we're there live in IME West. And we're going to wish everyone a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us here, and we'll be back soon.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Everybody.
Thanks.